They use bastardized versions of Japanese words and phrases.
お前はもう死んでいる。何?
Hello friends and welcome back to ReddX, your source for the freshest daily Reddit content anywhere on the internet. Promise, swearsies, it's just a fact, and it's totally science. I implore you, good sir, or madam, to look it up. Today we're jumping into r/NeckbeardStories. Actually, a couple of these come from my personal subreddit, r/ReddX reads. One of them comes from r/NeckbeardStories. But let me tell you, there is some exciting scientific research going on. I think we might have had an official scientific breakthrough today, courtesy of one of my patrons. I'm super excited to get this read, and it's all about like classifications of neckbeards, and then maybe we could test it out. We can take these classifications and try to apply them to the other neckbeards that we see in these stories, and maybe even discover some new classifications along the way. This is just cutting edge stuff, what we're doing right here, and I am super excited to share it with you guys. So without any further delay, let's go ahead, get some plugs and disclaimers out of the way, and then we can jump right into this neckbeard cringe. A Taxonomy of Neckbeards, Defining the Species, Volume 1, by Fire Drake. You know that patron that I shout out all the time? That's Fire Drake. He's right here. He's in my he's in my subreddit, r/ReddX reads, if you'd like me to read some of your stuff. Genus, Homo species, Beardicus. I apologize for any formatting issues. This was completed on mobile with a broken left hand. You see, science stops for nobody. That's what I call dedication. Genus can best be described as a collective race or category comprising those organisms who may produce fertile offspring. Thus, and quite unfortunately, the neckbeard male and legbeard female fall squarely into the Homo genus along with other human beings. The important distinction comes with the species designation. The neckbeard species are referred to in the scientific method of taxonomy as Homo beardicus. You and I, Homo sapien. They, Homo beardicus. For this report, the neckbeard species will be referred to by their species and subspecies nomenclatures, example Beardicus rotundus, as well as the common parlance of neck or leg beard and the abbreviated beard. I love using beard. I just throw it on the end of anything. Beard tails, beard posts, beard people. It is the goal of this anthropological study to identify the more common groupings of the neckbeard subspecies, bearing in mind that many of the traits and qualities used can be found not only in the definitions below, but are oftentimes interchangeable with the traits found in other neckbeard species. To better explain, in layman's terms, many of the behaviors espoused by the neckbeard subsets of the species are learned, and therefore subjective traits. So while Beardicus rotundus is for the most part characterized by their propensity towards gratuitous obesity, it is by no means an exclusive trait. Many of the Beardicus odiferae, who are classified as having a pungent or repulsive odor, may also be obese. It's my hope that by categorizing these majestic creatures, we may be able to, in time, better understand how such creatures came to be, and moreover, how we might find a sovereign cure. So maybe they could have like more than one subspecies, right? Like the rotundus and the odiferae could just be rotundus odiferae. They're like multi-classing and shit. Then you get into something that's like super hard to say, because usually neckbeards share 4 or 5 common traits. But anyways, to begin, it is important that we, as the researchers, come to a consensus as to the base characteristics inherent in the Beardicus species. After extensive, often exhausting observation, along with conferring with other researchers in the field, it is widely accepted that the base qualities which define a neckbeard are as follows: a man or a woman characterized by an inflated sense of self-worth and a powerful sense of entitlement, particularly to affection, subservience, and sexual acts from others. While it may be inferred from the colloquial term neckbeard that such creatures are unkempt or lacking in basic hygiene, that's not true of the species as a whole. Therefore, we can safely presume that the primary mode of classification is based in behavior, not physicalities. It's the beard on the inside that counts. Go ahead and pick up that t-shirt at Teespring. Link is in the description. It can be best captured in what modern documentary commentators, such as ReddX, Walter Fate, and Moonhorse, have phrased, "It's not the beard on the outside, but the beard on the inside that counts." Damn, I put the plug in here too early. My bad. Please keep these important characteristics in mind while you read the following definitions and examples. It's my intention to include only a few of the subspecies here in my first posting, to limit the length of this document, and to open the forum to peer review. It's so professionally done. Beardicus appropriatus. These neckbeards typically have an interest in anime, hentai, and waifuism due to their stereotypical perception of Japanese women as being meek and subservient to men, and thus their idealized, non-threatening sexual partner. They use bastardized versions of Japanese words and phrases, quite often misused, in their interactions with others. Their garb is interspersed, if not completely covered, with anime characters and logos, along with accessories, jewelry, and even tattoos with Japanese cultural references or words. Many of this subset apply the neckbeard's overweening sense of self-importance to their cultural appropriation, developing a superiority complex applicable to their chosen obsessions, and they engage in berating or gatekeeping in subjects like anime, video games, and even cosplay. While they can be irritating or even insufferable to be around for extended periods of time, appropriati are generally safe to interact with. Now, these are neckbeards that bleed quite closely into weeaboo territory, and we just might have to get like a Venn diagram going to explain all of the differences, but I do think that that is an apt description. We've got the Beardicus praetoracum. This subspecies of neck and leg beard dedicate themselves to the predation of others that they deem as suitable mating material. This manifests itself in several forms: inappropriate touching and language, often of a sexual nature, obsessive thoughts and desires directed at their chosen prey, following or stalking said individual, emotional manipulation through guilt, gaslighting, or deception, unwanted sexual advances up to and including sexual assault, and irrational and aggressive behavior towards anyone they see as a threat or an obstacle between them and their quarry. Many of these beards have learned the ability to camouflage themselves well, and may appear as any of the other subspecies of neck or leg beard. It's advised that if you encounter one of these in the wild, do not engage with it in any manner. The best course of action is to leave the area in the quickest and most efficient method available to you. We went from one of the most innocuous subspecies to one of the most dangerous. Definitely do not engage with these people. You have to just ignore them completely. A lot of these beard subspecies are able to be eviscerated with words and they will leave you alone, but the praetoracum is an anomaly among beard subspecies. They will rarely, if ever, give up. Our third classification, we have the Beardicus odiferae. This species of neckbeard is one of the most well-known, with many documented sightings and accounts dating back into the earliest periods of human history. These creatures carry with them a repugnant odor, ranging from mildly unpleasant to potentially lethal. And while the aroma can vary in its content and potency, there's a mystery concerning the purpose of such an offensive trait. Could it be a defense mechanism, like the skunk or polecat, to deter the neckbeard's natural predators like the North American chad, Chaddis domini? Or is it a pheromonal musk used to attract possible mates like the alligator or the lemur? This enigma is but one of many surrounding these impressive subspecies. If you find yourself encountering one of these neckbeards in the wild, be warned, as repeated or prolonged exposure to the Beardicus odiferae secretions can result in nausea, vomiting, stomach or bowel pain, fever, hallucinations, loss of sight or hearing, headaches, amnesia, internal hemorrhaging, convulsions, and in rare cases, even death. Therefore, it is important for the untrained observer to keep a hearty distance between themselves and this neckbeard to limit their exposure. Now, I think that the odiferae are so well documented because of their strong scent. I would hypothesize that this is meant to attract a mate, since the skunk or the polecat only use their stench when it is needed as a defense mechanism, while the alligator or lemur are creating this musk all of the time. What sort of pokes a hole into that theory is the fact that these odiferae have been seen to use Axe body spray in order to either cover up or enhance their natural musk. I will say that more research is definitely needed, and you guys can help by reporting any sightings that you have. Finally, we have the Beardicus militanevius. Closely related to the Beardicus preteracum, the Beardicus militanevius, or white knight neckbeard, relies on emotional manipulation not only for the prospects of mating, but more often for the attainment of 3 of their favorite foods: gratitude, pity, and guilt. Also known as a simp chimp. White knight neckbeards will attempt to insert themselves into situations where they may champion their prospective mate or food source, employing words such as "lady" in order to elicit gratitude. White knight neckbeards are also adept at mimicry, impersonating concerned protectors of the feminine gender and espousing ideals like feminism to all within earshot. This display is purely for the purpose of extracting the desired gratitude for their consumption. Then, once the neckbeard has inserted itself into their prey's social circles or ingratiated itself to the food source, they will employ manipulation tactics to elicit the aforementioned pity and guilt. These neckbeards, like many parasites, will attach themselves so thoroughly to the host that nothing short of physical violence or death will extract them. While beard researchers like myself are working on non-lethal intervention methods, the science is unfortunately, or fortunately, still out on that. Anyways, it seems prudent to end the list here at this time, as I wish to see how interested the perusers of Reddit are in such classification studies. If interest is strong enough, I'll happily post more of these classifications. I sincerely hope that you find the information above helpful in your own personal studies of the strange and enigmatic neckbeard. Beautifully written, wonderfully done. I gotta catch 'em all. I want to become the greatest neckbeard trainer of all time. Oh man, this definitely needs to become like, you know, a book all on its own. I'll totally buy that. If it gets written, you count me in. I also kind of want to make like shirts. I'm so obsessed with shirts lately, but I would totally buy them all the neckbeard subspecies shirts. Maybe done in like an old-timey style, like one of those pages from a old ancient biology textbook or something like that. I'm getting ideas. I'm liking this a lot. Oh, there are definitely many more subspecies that need classifying, and Fire Drake seems to have a way with words that I quite simply don't. I can say words well, but putting them on the page is another story entirely. So, if you'd like, perhaps I can provide some insight with some of my neckbeard encounters and give you some ideas for more subspecies. But I would definitely like to see this continue. There are potentially hundreds of subspecies out there, even if most of those subspecies are just combinations of the previous subspecies. Gosh, man, I really enjoyed this. Fire Drake was in the Discord like, we should classify some subspecies. I'm like, it's a job. It's too big for one man. And he's like, I'll take it on. What a champion, dude. And he's a patron. I owe you a beer, at least. I owe you 6 beers. If you're ever in the Philippines, let me know. We gonna kick it for realsy reals. Fire Drake, ladies and gentlemen. Let's give him a round of applause. And hope to see more from him quite soon. With all that said, let's try and put our new skills to the test as we dive into this next Neckbeard story. Neckbeard versus 11-year-old jackass. We're taking bets. Place your bets, place your bets. Hello, I've been reading/listening to a lot of Neckbeard stories, and I thought that I'd share my own back from my college years. Mind you, the events in this story took place over a decade ago, and I've since moved away from the area that this happened in. Now, a little bit about me at the time. I was basically your classic beard bait. Into anime, an art major, a massive nerd, a gamer, and all those things that brought the neckbeards to the yard. Provided they can get out of their house. I also had crippling social anxiety. Feel that. I'm leagues better now, but good God, was it bad. To the point where I only had one friend at the time that wasn't from high school, and even making that friend was a struggle. To this day, he is a great friend though, and a large part of why my social anxiety isn't remotely as bad as it was, so it was worth it. We'll call him Midnight, because that's the proper spelling for one of his many online aliases. There's also my little brother. Nowadays, he's a weed-smoking, video game-playing gearhead, but back then, he was an 11-year-old video game-playing, cartoon-watching baby gearhead. And then he discovered weed, and those cartoons ain't been the same since. One thing that's never changed about him is that he is a wholly unrepentant jackass. Seriously, one time he got suspended for kicking a kid's ass. The kid had eaten my brother's candy solar system, and while he did apologize to that kid's mom, when I asked him about it later, questioning if he was actually sorry, he said, "I really am sorry. Sorry she has a son who enjoys the taste of glue." This kid, we'll call him Raven, an old gamer tag of his. And then there was the neckbeard of the story. I'll call him WETBEARD for reasons you'll see later. WETBEARD was short, morbidly obese, wore sweatpants and t-shirts all of the time, and he stank to high hell. Already we have rotundus and odiferi. My cousin, we'll call him Pie, put it best when he said that WETBEARD didn't just smell like ass, he smelled like all the ass. Endless mountains of ass. Now, I knew WETBEARD from like way before college, because he lived a couple of blocks from me. He was tentatively part of the neighborhood kids group. Note, he knew exactly where I lived because of this, but my mother had preemptively banned him from our house due to the smell. Now, you think that him being part of the neighborhood group of kids would help me either be more comfortable with him or at least tolerant of him, but no, it didn't. Because when we were old enough to find out about dating, he decided that
I was gonna be his girlfriend whether I liked it or not.
Oh, see, now we're adding Predator Rackham into the mix. He is just such a multi-classing neckbeard. One time, when we were both 12, he appeared out of nowhere and told me that we were dating. Not asking me or anything, just saying,
Brett, we're boyfriend and girlfriend now.
Now, taking the aforementioned crippling social anxiety into account, you wouldn't be surprised to know that this caused me to freeze up and have a panic attack. My mom got me away from him, thankfully, but this event did not deter him. There was another time when WETBEARD came to my house and started repeatedly throwing his shoe at my window. That's a good way to get your ass kicked by an angry father. I know what I would do. Raven was in my room using my PlayStation at the time, and so he proceeded to open said window and throw one of his boots at WETBEARD. When questioned about the incident later, as WETBEARD's parents had complained to my mom, Raven claimed that he was just trying to speak his language. We can confirm that it is hard to speak with a differing subspecies. The boy's young, but he has a point. Needless to say, WETBEARD didn't care much for Raven. To him,
Raven was the annoying little shit keeping him away from his milady.
In fact,
little shit
was how he referred to Raven. Raven fully agreed with WETBEARD's characterization of him and wore the name Little Shit like it was a badge of honor. Now, luckily, I didn't go to high school with WETBEARD, but my luck ran out because we ended up at the same college where I met Midnight. Now, my social anxiety wasn't the only reason it took me about 1.5 years to develop a meaningful relationship with Midnight. Apparently, WETBEARD had been threatening Midnight to
stay away from me because I was his girlfriend.
Now, WETBEARD threatening Midnight is just inherently hilarious because Midnight is tall, muscular, and a stereotypically terrifying-looking goth who could have easily beat the crap out of WETBEARD, but Napoleon complex, I guess? It ain't the size of the dog in the fight or something like that. Anyway, Midnight kept his distance because he wanted to avoid any drama, which affected me because I thought I was the problem, and I started beating myself up over it. It was only after we were forced onto a class project together that Midnight told me why he was acting distant. I then told him that no, WETBEARD was not my man. It was just a creepy neighbor that made me wildly uncomfortable and caused me loads of stress. Now, I was pissed at this, and a normal person would have just told Wetbeard off at this point. But since I was afraid of people, Midnight thankfully did it for me. I guess it worked for a while, but then we all went home for summer break, and I didn't have my terrifying goth bodyguard to protect me, as he lived clear on the other side of the country. One day, in the middle of July, I decided to go to the corner store to get some lemonade. Unluckily for me, the corner store was right near Wetbeard's house. Because of this, I usually went to the corner store in the other direction that was farther, but that one was closed for renovations at this point, so I just prayed that Wetbeard would not magically notice that I was in the vicinity. My prayers were not answered. I got in without incident, but waiting outside for me was Wetbeard. Wetbeard?
Hey, Brat, how?
OP, leave me alone. Wetbeard?
Come on, Brat.
OP, get away from me. I then slipped past him and started walking home, but he followed me. He kept trying to talk to me, but I kept interrupting him with multiple variants of fuck off. Once I got to the end of my street, I booked it so I'd have just enough time to get the door open and get in and lock it on him. He tried his best to run after me, but he was out of shape. So I get to my door and fumble again with my keys when I hear,
Stop it, you little shit! Why gobble?
I turn around to see Wetbeard getting hosed down by Raven. See, what I hadn't noticed in my panic is that Raven was in our driveway washing our mother's car. When he noticed me running away from Wetbeard, he timed it just right and turned the hose on him and kept it on him until Wetbeard got out of striking range and retreated down the street. At this point, I said, Raven, I appreciate the assist, but don't you think that was a little much? And in true jackass fashion, he replied, that was about the closest thing to a shower he's ever gonna get. I had to make it count. I like him. He's a cool kid. I told Midnight about the situation over the phone, and he, of course, found it hilarious. Later that day, Raven and Pie would come up with a Wile E. Coyote-style harebrained scheme that only two teenage boys could possibly concoct to ambush wash Wetbeard, but I refused to return to that store for the sole purpose of being literal bait. So Operation Beardo Wash, unfortunately, never saw the light of day. Probably wouldn't have helped that much anyways. Wetbeard mostly left me alone after this, and attempted to woo my other cousin, Pie's older sister, fake named Cake, but Cake has balls of steel, and is more likely to choose violence than I am, so that lasted about all of 2 weeks. I'd gone to visit Midnight for one of those weeks, so I didn't get the whole story, but if I can get Cake, Pie, or Raven to tell me, I'll post it here. TLDR. Well, gosh, that is a multi-classing neckbeard if I've ever seen one. Just be glad that he didn't learn how to roll, OP, because then he would have just, like, Indiana Jones you all the way down the streets. Rolled right past your house or something. Right down Main Street. Caused a 5-car pileup. But that's not the type of car crash we like to see. We just like to see neckbeards who are so lacking in self-awareness that they think that they're deserving of anything. Entitled to a relationship. I hope you treat your little brother well because he definitely saved you from further harassment. Who would have thought that an 11-year-old with a hose would outdo like a giant goth bodyguard? But like I said, it's not the size of the dog in the fight. It's the size of the fight in the dog. I hope that you will be back to share some more tales with us. I really did enjoy this one. As for the classification of beard, there are strong trappings of rotundus, preterocum, and odiferae, but I think that you have to do the two most pertinent. So first it would be preterocum, because people need to know immediately that this guy is dangerous, at least on some level, and then odiferae, because obviously his smell was more overwhelming than his rotund bulk. I guess you could also throw rotundus in there, but then we're getting a little wordy. So Beardicus, Preterocum, Odiferae is my final classification for Wetbeard. I really love this scientific classification stuff. It's super delicious. God bless Fire Drake. We got to do this for every story from now on. Definitely appreciate the story, OP. And we are going to roll right into our last one. A neckbeard harassed me in front of my own mother, and she didn't even notice. Oh no. Was he subtle, or is mom just like totally out of it? I guess we'll see. This happened years back when I was roughly 11 or 12, so I don't remember 100% of the detail, but I definitely remember more than enough. 11 or 12? You should have got a hose. That's how the 11-year-old in our last story handled it. It's a bad joke. It was a day like any other one. I was in my room, in my bed, and on my phone, basically doing nothing and staring at the screen. My mother walked into the room telling me that
She was gonna invite a school friend over for dinner.
I personally really hate it when she invites people over, and didn't plan on getting out of my room before he was gone. He finally arrived, and I was hiding in my room as per usual. My mother and this anonymous friend were in the kitchen/living room area of the house. I didn't really have a care in the world until my mother got into my room, whining about how he
Really wanted to see me
and
was so excited to meet you.
which I didn't think was too weird because I was just a clueless 11-year-old. What the fuck do I know about the world? I got out of my room expecting to see some average guy my mother would be friends with, only to get surprised by a neckbeard. At the time, I wasn't aware of what a neckbeard TM was, but now that I think about it, he fit the typical description of a neckbeard when appearance is in question. Only thing he was missing was a fedora and an anime t-shirt. He was very overweight, had a prickly beard, and just had that neckbeard energy. You feel that beard on the inside, man. I went into the kitchen and was forced to sit down and eat with him. The whole table experience was very weird. He didn't even try to talk to my mother, and just kept trying to talk to me, an 11-year-old, eating lukewarm soup. I was shy and didn't want to talk to him, and he kept telling me about
His ex-girlfriend.
Mind you, I'm fucking 11, and he's telling me all about his ex-girlfriend? He kept talking about his girlfriend until he finally said,
We were best friends, and I finally decided to confess my love to her.
which clearly means that she was not his girlfriend. He went on talking about how
She's moving to a different country and leaving him behind.
I wonder why. What a mystery. He finally started telling me about the dramatic confession scene, which, even to my childish brain, sounded fake as hell. He said,
He wrote her a song and got down on one knee in front of her at the airport and recited the song as she cried and finally ran away as he tried to hold her hand.
Seen too many movies, bud. He asked me if I wanted to read the song that he wrote, and as a little kid wanting to be a producer/songwriter, I was ready to roast and toast his writing skills, so I decided to say yes and read his little poem without realizing that my mother would inevitably be angry at me for insulting her friend, which made me regret saying yes. But hindsight's 20/20, isn't it? Not gonna lie, I don't remember much of the song, but I surely remember it being less than mediocre and just too boring to read. I just ended up half-assing some comments and hoped that I could go back to my room because I had finished my soup. I wanted to go, but he asked me to
Stay a little more, 'cause he's going away soon anyways.
And forced by my mom, I did have to stay. He didn't want to finish his food, even after my asking him to, and he said something along the lines of,
Let's move to the couch before I go.
We moved from the table onto the couch, and he forced me to sit in his lap. Oh my god. Where's your fucking mother? What is going on here? Where did she find this guy? I have so many questions. I really hate where this is going. I really did not want to do that. As a mildly edgy 11-year-old, anyone touching me was a big no-no. It would be, no matter how old you are, this is not okay. But once again, my mother made me because
I was being mean.
God. Mother is brain dead. As soon as I went near him, he grabbed me with the energy of 1,000,000,000 Mountain Dews. And I couldn't move. He pushed me so hard against him that I actually struggled to breathe. At the time, I wasn't aware of the concept of erections, but thinking back at it, he was at least starting to get hard, and I feel really gross thinking about it. Oh, God. I'm so glad we saved this for the last story. This is so horrible. Always got to go out with a bang, huh? That's a terrible joke. I wish I could take it back, but I just can't. I was forced into the hug for several minutes as he talked to my mother until he finally said
he had to get going.
But there was a catch. He wanted a goodbye kiss. Even as a kid that can't comprehend the concept of pedophiles, I was extremely uncomfortable and clearly didn't want to do it. I started to run away to my room, but once again, my mother made me. God, your mother deserves to be executed. Where's this woman nowadays? What is she doing? I hope she developed a conscience at some point and is just having a really hard time living with herself. I got close to him, and once again, he grabbed me by the head and tried to kiss me on the lips. I hate this, dude. I fucking hate this. Which I luckily managed to turn my head away, but his crusty lips and nasty beard still touched my cheek before I managed to once and for all run away. See, I was thinking earlier why she called the beard prickly. Now we know, because if you're wondering why my mother was acting like this, I can't tell you anything with 100% certainty, but what I can say is that our culture is very different, and she isn't the smartest at reading a situation, obviously. I have no idea if she even remembers the incident, but if she does, knowing her, she would just shove it under the rug just like any other time that I was harassed, and blame me instead of him. Oh God, OP, I am so sorry you had to grow up like that. I hope you're up and out now, just completely removed from this situation. This is just absolutely terrifying. I don't know what country you're from, but if it is normal, if it is accepted, it definitely should not be. This is such a horrifying thing to imagine. Honestly, it kind of knocked the wind completely out of my sails, you know? I'm like, haha, let's have some funny neckbeard classifications. And then we met Beardicus Preterockum, the ultimate beard predator, and just, I can't, dude. I can't. I hate stories like this. Like, I don't vet things so I can get my initial reaction, and my initial reaction to this is just horror. Horror and disgust, and, there's a healthy dose of pity in there too. I mean, I hope that you're okay now, OP. That's what I'm gonna say. At least it didn't progress beyond this, but I'm so fucking sad that it even progressed to this. Man, life is just so difficult, horrible, unfair sometimes. And it is within you to turn it around. I hope that you have been able to with your life. And I definitely hope that you having your story heard and shared helps you at least in some way, because believe me that these stories do speak to people. There might be somebody else out there who has experienced this, and they need to hear that they can come back from it. They don't need to let this situation define them. I am not a therapist, but if you feel the need to go to therapy, then you definitely should. I mean, you're strong, you're brilliant, you're beautiful. You definitely deserve not to let this define you completely. I hope we can just get a couple of horses and drag that pedo and the mom behind him. Where did she even meet this guy? What is going on? How is this real life? God damn, dude. That is a heavy one. So with that, I'm just gonna get out of here, try and forget this entire thing. But I do thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that you'll like, comment, and or subscribe. If you did enjoy the episode, maybe share it around. Those beard classifications definitely need to become part of the common nomenclature, at least in my opinion. I hope you also check out the links in the description. There's some stuff that wasn't on the splash page from earlier, such as my wife's channel, Mr. and Mrs. ReddX, my personal subreddit, ReddX Reads. There's also the Teespring if you want to rock some of that merch. And then we also got the patrons. Oh yes, how could I fake forget my patrons? You're seeing some names on the screen, and I would like to thank them all. but especially Zero MMX, Lady Nix, Robert Waits, Pope Squid, Rebecca H, Cider Drinker, Tato Ferret, The Last Shinobi, Mark 211, Michael Undead, Aaron W, Mitch, John Hero, Josh K, Candy Sora, Digian Z, Fire Drake, Little Lone Wolf, Lone Island, Shara, Marvy the Moth, Ms. Monday, Silent Revolver, and JM Coon. Got him! I'm gonna start trying to do it faster and faster every day. And then I can be like the best rapper. Who are the 5 best rappers? Dayton, ReddX. It's the same guy. I thank you guys so much for supporting. Sometimes things do get demonetized on the channel, and it's really, really nice to be able to kind of lean back on the patrons and not have to worry so much about what gets demonetized and what doesn't. Obviously, if anybody else can support, that is absolutely massive to me. Definitely appreciated. But if you can't right now, don't sweat it too hard, guys. I just appreciate you coming on through, hanging out with me, and I hope that you come on back and hang out with me again tomorrow. Because really the views is how my beard gets buttered. In order to do so, you'll need to keep yourself safe out there. Wash your hands is super important, not to be underestimated. But also, take some time out and do something that you personally enjoy today. Maybe watching another ReddX video. Hey, you can practice your classifications. Always remember, friends, that you are loved, you are worthy, and you definitely deserve it. I will see you in the next one. And until then, friends, bye-bye.